Okay, so just to do a quick recap of what we looked at the last day. So we looked at the traces of the planes, and what we said was we always have two traces. We have a vertical trace where the plane that we're looking at hits the vertical plane, and then we have a horizontal trace where the plane hits the horizontal plane. And depending on the angle of the planes to those two principal planes, you get your traces at different angles. Okay, and we were saying that the most regular one would be these ones over here. So the kind of the oblique plane, because it's at an angle to both of the planes of reference. We then went down and had a look at this construction. Now, I know I said that I wanted you to make sense of this to me and explain it to me, but obviously with the school closing, we didn't get a chance to look at that. So just very quickly to explain this, what we have is, let me just get a cutter here. Okay, so this line here, so SP, so if I go over that one, so that line there is the equivalent of both this line and this line. Okay, so in the elevation, the blue line here is the blue line there, and in the plan, the blue line here is what would be the blue line over here. Now, what that means for our actual drawing of this and why this construction works the way it is that when we're looking from the different directions here, you'll see that, as I say, we have the blue one. If the blue one here is coming along over there, and the blue one over here, is that all those lines that are in between, so the vertical lines, are all just kind of projections to be able to find the different heights of where it's at. So if I have the blue line here in the plan, when it comes across and hits the vertical trace, it hits a vertical trace, and we then go across from there, because once it hits the vertical trace, we know that it's on the vertical plane. Okay, so the point P here at the moment isn't on any of the planes of reference. When it comes along here, it hits the vertical plane, which has to, because it's on this plane, be on the trace, and then we can bring it across, because that's the height. So we were looking for the height here. So when you bring this line across here for your P, that is going to stay horizontal, which means that we get the height of P there. So that yellow line is also that line, okay, because it's at the other side of when we're looking at it. That's how we find with the height P in that view. Now, to bring it down into the horizontal plane, we have to bring it down the way. Okay, so we have to, when we're looking for the horizontal plane, is we have it at a height here, but if we want to bring it down onto horizontal plane, we have to come directly down. So it's coming straight down here and straight down here. Okay, so what's happening there is, to get to the horizontal plane, the distance that we're looking at, we want to find it looking straight down. So those two lines, so from P and SR, we have our lines coming down here. So what we then have is that for that construction, if we have a look at the green line here, so this RP here, so that line is also the equivalent of the line coming along here. Okay, now I know that in general that's a hard enough concept to get your head around when you're looking at it, but it is just plain orthographic with the use of this plane on top of it. Now, when we get back to school after our little break, I'll go into this in a bit more detail for you, but for the moment I'll just explain how the questions work using that construction rather than just the plain understanding of the construction. So what we then have is, if we scroll down here again, is this construction. Okay, now what this one is looking at, and I'm going to look at it on the board in a second, is taking a line here, and we're told that the line AB is on the oblique plane, and what it's asking us to do is to find this line in the plan, but only given the information for it to have it in the elevation here. Okay, so we just have where B is, we have where A is, but we have nothing to do with where it is in the plan. Okay, so what we have for that is we have a couple of ways of doing it. Am I missing a page? No. Okay, so we have a couple of ways of doing it. We have the way that they have it here in the book. which is slightly different to what it has up above. But do we have this other one? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up on my board because I want to explain this using the same construction as up above. This one is doing a very similar thing with the construction, but just doing it in a different order. Okay, so I'm going to leave this one for now. We will come back to looking at this, but just for the moment, just ignore this one and look at what I'm about to do now in a minute. Okay, so here we have the question set up. I have my vertical trace, I have my horizontal trace, and then I have the line AB, which is asking for in the question. Now, the important thing here is, first of all, when we have the vertical trace and horizontal trace, the way that we label it is always with the T in the middle because it's in both. So vertical trace, so V for vertical, T for trace, and horizontal trace, H for vertical, H for horizontal and T for trace. So we have the vertical trace and we have the horizontal trace, and that's always how they'll be labeled. So if I want to find this line then down in the plan, what I need to do is I need to bring my 2 points individually down from the elevation down into the plan using the construction that I was looking at in the book. And whatever shape this is, so in this case it's a line, but if you had 3 points or 4 points or 5 points, so if it was a hexagon or a triangle or any of those different shapes, the method for finding the points would be the same no matter what. Okay, so we'll always use the same construction for finding the points in these views. So what we'll do is that we start off with bringing the points from where they are first across horizontally to the vertical trace. So the same as what I was saying to you in the book, in that it's first of all going across horizontally to the vertical trace, because we need to make sure that the height stays the same for these. Okay, so they need to stay the same height on in the two views. The next thing then, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come straight down from where it hits the vertical trace, because I want to bring it down onto the ground. So what we said was these two lines are working on the vertical plane, and I want to bring it down so that I can work in the horizontal plane, because at the moment these two lines don't have anything to do with the horizontal plane that we have down here. So if I bring down my first line here, I'll leave B for a second. So if I bring down A, I now have A down here on the ground, so I can work in the horizontal plane now, okay, because it's down onto the ground. So the last thing then when we're looking at it is we're going to come from this, we're going to come parallel to the horizontal trace, and the reason that we come parallel to the horizontal trace, as we were saying in class the last day, is because if I come parallel to that and I know that this line is on the plane, and I know also that the horizontal trace is horizontal, I know that coming across at this angle is going to make sure that this is a horizontal line, which means that the height stays the same. Okay, so this line is kind of up at the height of A here, and it's when it goes parallel to this, means it's saying it's the same height. So when I then come to find A, I know that it's going to be in the right spot. So the last thing then is to bring A down, and where they meet is where my A is in the plan. Okay, so that's where my A goes. For my B then, I'm going to come down, straight down. Now again, ideally understanding this is the best thing, but when I'm not actually in class to kind of talk it through with you, it's hard to kind of get the real understanding with it. So as long as for the moment you understand how the construction works, then we can kind of get into the understanding of it later on, but just the method is kind of the same whatever way we're doing it. So we're coming straight across horizontally, we're coming down to the XY line, then we're coming parallel to the horizontal trace and bringing it down from the other one, and that'll be the same for all of the ones that you're going to do at the moment. But when we get back to class, we'll talk to you this a little bit more just to make sure that we're happy with how you understand it. But at the moment, if the understanding about where this is going isn't there, don't worry too much about it. Just make sure that you're happy with just the construction itself, so where our lines are coming from, where they for one. So what I now have is I have my AB and I have my BC. Now in the questions that I'm going to ask you to do, they have them in different shapes. So if I made this into a triangle, so I'm adding to this question now something that isn't in the book, but just added in. So if I put in another point here, so I've put in a point C here, and made this into a triangle. So if I now have a triangle here, if I want to find that triangle down in the plan, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that point C there, I'm going to bring it again across to hit my vertical trace. I am then going to come straight down again. So come straight down, and going to then come parallel to the horizontal trace again, and come down from my C, and there you'll see then that if I join those up, I've now brought my triangle that I'm after creating in the elevation. I'm after bringing it down into the plan. And again, as I say, it doesn't matter how many different points that you're given in this view or in this view, the construction would be the same. The only thing that would change then is that if you were given your points in this view, is that you would work up in this direction rather than working across in the other direction. So just depending on whether you're given your points here or here, you'll just do the construction in a different order. So you'll either do it across it and down, or you'll do it at your angle here and up, depending on the question that you're looking at doing.